Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Nick Files. I'm your host, Nick Muley. For starters, I just want to make a quick apology that I wasn't able to do the show last week due to time constraints on getting the slideshows ready for the next episode. But fortunately, now that a week has passed by, proud to say I got enough slideshows to present for today's episode. And today we got quite a good for today's episode. It's going to be quite a good one. Like I just said, I already created a couple of slideshows, including one that was as what I would call a requested presentation, if you will, from an investigator by name of. If any of you guys don't know who Brad Webb is of Cracked Skull Paranormal, he has an investigation coming up this weekend, so he requested me to work on. To present this location. We're still going to be, of course, focusing on with that part 5 of Athens, Ohio. But we're going to start off with this part. We're going to start off with this place first. It's called the Rose Opera House. Unfortunately and surprisingly, despite such a history and such a place like this, it's probably going to be no shorter than some the other previous slideshows I've been showing. Seriously, I was really surprised when I saw there wasn't very much historical information on this location, but I'll still present it anyway because it's at least it should still be interesting. So we'll start off with that, and then like I said, we will immediately continue on with part 5 with Athens, Ohio. Just want to give quick shout outs to those who just commented. Hello, Eric. Hello, Rita. Good to see you guys. I'm sure this will probably increase, as we continue forward. And so, without further ado, let's get right to it. Always got to do this fun act, of course. Oh, and I just realized I need to share this to give me 1 second here, guys. I just realized I need to share this to the It's Haunted Network page. I forgot to see. I'm not really able to broadcast it, but I am able to share it out. But technically, the show is supposed to be in some way, it's supposed to be broadcasting on the It's Haunted Network page. So give me 1 second here, just so I could. Wait, here we go. Just so I could share it out. Unfortunately, I came prepared of what I was going to be writing, so this will literally only take like 15 seconds to post. So, and we're good. Okay, but now I got to, as I always have to do right at the beginning, is always making sure that the presentation is showing up on the screen correctly. And also, I just saw in the comments here. Good evening, Natalie. Good to see you. And we're all set. So, the first slideshow I said that I got for today, we're going to start off with the requested presentation, which is going to be on the Rose Opera House, which is located in Cynthiana, Kentucky. Which, again, in spite of its history, it's relatively surprising how such little information I was able to find on this place. Not sure if Brad's watching yet. Brad, if you're on, I'm starting off with this location first. Okay, so as far as the history goes, and again, this is all I was able to find on this place, and trust me, again, like I always say, right before I start with these presentations, when it comes to these relatively shorter presentations, again, it's not in any way, shape, or form that I just go from one page, copy the information down, and that's it. When I'm really able to find rather limited information, I go on at least a couple different websites to see if I could find more additional info on these locations. And sometimes, again, that even if you go on other pages, either they show the same type of information, which is exactly what I copied, or it just there's there's just no other place where they may have other info on it. So this is all I pretty much have. So on the history so starting off with the history of the Rose Opera House, which is about 20 miles north of Lexington, is the oldest continuing running theater in Kentucky. Built in 1871 as the Aeolian Hall Music Association, the original opera house was built on the second floor of the current building. H.A. Ross bought Aeolian Hall, I hope I'm saying that correctly, in 1873 and renamed it the Rose Opera House. A silent movie projector was eventually added to bring movies to Cynthiana. In 1941, the new Rose Opera House was added to the building by H.A. Rose and his son Carl. But believe it or not, these men are the grandfather and great-grandfather of the actor Chris O'Donnell. So obviously it opened that year with the showing of Down Argentine Way. Ticket prices was, just 5 cents for adults. And again, like I just said, that was all the history I was able to find this place, which I thought was a little bit surprising that I couldn't find that much. So I guess going right down to I've actually decided to kind of make this a little bit more colorful, if you will, and kind of identifying particular entities that haunt locations. So instead of always just simply saying ghosts, I've added, in this case, ghost, shadow people, orb, and myth stories. And you're going to start seeing a lot of it. And that was all these different color titles actually represented back when I used to run a paranormal group in which we had, even though I still wear the vests, I actually had a group where we actually wore a different type of vests, and any type of entity or anomaly that one of my investigators at the time had witnessed and that we also witnessed, we would have a different colored patch for the different entity and anomaly. So a lot of these colors that you see here on these titles are based on the entities and anomalies, and also based from what is also kind of a throwback to when I was running my own paranormal group back in the day. But to get right to the ghost, shadow people, orb, and myth stories, is that somewhere in the theater's long history, it picked up the reputation of being the third most haunted location in Kentucky, presumably behind Waverly Hills and Bobby Mackey's. It is best known for the reports of a full-bodied apparition dubbed the Woman in White. Witnesses have reported seeing a woman who appears to be in her 40s, wearing a long flowing white garment. Evidence from various paranormal groups seems to support the idea that she isn't the only ghost at the theater. The sounds of children laughing and playing, as well as an angry man's voice, have all been captured. In addition to the ghosts themselves, there have also been mysterious shadow figures, orbs, and myths captured on photographs. And I actually do have a couple good examples right here. These are mostly from the website itself I was able to find. And this is, of course, obviously the same photo, but you could see that right here in the back of the auditorium, especially by this photo, you can see, if I'm seeing it correctly, some type of, almost looks like that of a head sticking out of a shadow person. Again, I can't say for sure, but according to what the investigators who took these photos, was that there was a shadow figure, or at least the head of a shadow figure, standing all the way in the back of the auditorium. And a few other photos I got here. See, here's one of the photos here that deals with the supposed mist-like phenomenon. Now, again, yes, it is an old location, and there's always a possibility that, as it is on a lot of cases, it's probably just dust. But of course, if any of the investigators or witnesses said that there was nothing like that out of the ordinary, then maybe perhaps it is the mist-like phenomenon. Right here, again, here's another simple photo. You can see this awesome looking orb, which again, it could just be the result of dust, because again, like I said, I'm not really a big fan of orbs unless like it looks perfectly well, even though it is perfectly round, but also showing if it actually has like lighter substance to it. And this, of course, I believe looks like it's once again, I think in the auditorium area. But again, according to what the investigators had said, that there was nothing like this that they could see, or at least they were aware of, as far as dust was going on. And then finally, I got two other photos here. These once again show like different orbs. Again, once again, it could also just be some type of reflection, but again, just seeing how perfectly round these are and seeing how that they're going in two different directions. Whether it's if this is truly a genuine orb or if it was two separate ones, I gotta say that's a pretty good shot to see how perfectly round they are. But again, I'm somewhat skeptical of them, but at the same time, I'm also relatively open to it regardless. And that was basically it for this one, is like I said before. So it was definitely a really good thing. I packed up a number of other slideshows to fill up for the entirety of the hour. Just to give a quick shout out once again for everyone who was just tuning in. Hello, Jacqueline. Good to see you. Hello, Natalie. He requested it. He better be on. I was hoping he would, but so far I have not seen him. What's up, Nigel? Good to see you. What's going on, Annette? Lauren, you made it. Great to see you. Doing just fine. Hope you're having a great day as well. Okay, so continuing forward with Athens, Ohio. Give me 1 second here, and I actually had to put this all in alphabetical order. And like I said, the next couple slideshows are going to be again relatively short, but it should be enough if I'm correct on filling up the entire hour. So let me get the next slideshow ready. Give me a second here. And okay, here we go. All right, so on to the next real short one. The way I'm kind of seeing is that it seems like each of these slideshows that I got for today, it's like they may start off real short right at the beginning, but as we proceed, I think they're eventually going to get a little longer at least, because I know not all of the slideshows that I put together are like just one or two slides at a time. I know I definitely have a couple longer ones. But we'll just get right to the shorter ones. And I don't know who that. Okay, that's gonna have to be answered later. So next location I have. Oops, I forgot to put a fade in with this one. It's what's known as Airplane Hollow, which is on the outskirts of Athens, Ohio. Definitely a very beautiful area, but again, typical of such locations like that, it's got quite a history and certainly a number of hauntings. So this is the only information again I was able to find on this location, and that is on May 7th. And this is also the reason why it's called the Airplane Hollow. On May 17th, 1941, a twin-engine military plane wrecked 6 miles north of Nelsonville, Ohio. Okay, so near more of Nelsonville, but still close to the Athens area. I know it's somewhere in. I believe the area is actually more in Athens County than the actual town of Athens, but I still decided to throw it in because it was still within the county. As a matter of fact, I've been able to expand more than just the town of Athens itself, but also some other locations that you're going to be seeing that is within the Athens County area itself. But apparently what happened was that the pilot tried desperately to land in a field during a violent storm with high winds and torrential rain ripping through Ohio. Instead, the plane crashed into a muddy road, ripping out trees and brush along the hillside. There were 5 men on board, and tragically, all of them were killed. They'd been identified as a squadron from Barksdale Field, Louisiana, on a routine navigation flight to Cleveland. And as surprising as it is, especially when it comes to plane crashes, I would have expected at the very least that not only would I was expecting to find more info, but I would also find more photographs. But surprisingly, this is the only newspaper article that I was able to find on this plane crash. Um, I know it's a little bit hard to kind of read, but well, I'll just read the first sentence just to really give you guys an idea of how bad this plane crash was, especially the squadron of men that were killed. But apparently, it says all of the bodies were battered beyond recognition. An ambulance driver said so. It must have been a very gruesome discovery when the men's bodies were discovered. Not to mention, it's probably likely, and it's typical, of course, for any plane crash that they were probably burned beyond recognition as well. But I was lucky enough to at least find one newspaper article on this. So, uh, again, it's just really surprising that aside that what I found, especially with an event like this, that there was not much information on this plane crash, which is probably, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the very least known plane crashes that I know of. Oh, and I forgot to put a fade in on that one too. But as a result, with what it's like today, people now they hear, people hear screams there now. Some say the sound of a plane can be heard on cloudy nights and even sometimes during the day. Now, it's not uncommon for such locations like this, but apparently there's also an urban legend version was that the crash was that it took place instead this time in either the 1950s or 60s, and that it was a small plane with a man, his wife, and child crashed in a hollow north of Nelsonville. The plane was not found for a couple of weeks, and unfortunately, the man and his wife died on impact. The baby lived only to starve to death. Apparently, one can go on some nights and park near the woods where they crashed and still hear a baby crying. And once again, this was another one of these locations that just had rather limited information. So unfortunately, there's just not much on this location. Just before we get to the next slideshow, hey, Elliot's in the house. Great to see you, Elliot. Let me just go back very quickly because again, there were a couple of errors that went through with this, so bear with me for just a moment. I think I was just in such a hurry of getting this one done that I didn't even really think about getting the fade-ins done correctly, which normally I usually have that done correctly right before I do a show. All right, hang on a second. Okay. All right, we're all set. That's all been fixed. So on to the next one. Give me 1 second here. Yep, now they're starting to become a little bit longer, so that way we could focus on it more often. And yes, Annette, it definitely is definitely a horrific way to die. I mean, it's I've heard of quite a couple of horror stories involving those type of plane crashes and what they found for those that were killed in such accidents like this. So let me get to the next one. So the third slideshow I got is right here. We go. This one is focusing on another cemetery, which this one is known as Bethel Cemetery. And just before I start reading the info on this one, I think it's probably worth noticing. You guys are going to notice this too as I read this. Is that if this is the right cemetery I'm thinking of, this cemetery has, unlike most cemeteries, has a very unusual layout and design, and you're going to see why in just a few minutes of exactly what's kind of odd about this cemetery. So a little bit on the history on it, and this goes once again about the layout of them. But the Bethel Cemetery is known for its questionable layout of graves that are puzzling due to their strange direction. Now, as you can see on these pictures, it doesn't really, you can see not only just how there's a lot of gravestones that look relatively old and aged, it may look just like any other historic cemetery, and you might not even notice it. But again, as we proceed through the slideshow, you're going to realize very quickly of what's unusual about their direction. So it might even catch you off guard a little bit. But for most cemeteries, it is common knowledge that the majority of cemeteries plan out the graves to face east to west, naturally aligning with the rising sun. But this graveyard has a set of plots that are arranged north to south, which isn't a normal layout for a cemetery, and with no visible explanation as to why. Many of the graves, as you can see in this picture, not only are old, but they're also sunken, which, they've obviously fallen victim to the elements. And again, that was really the only type of history I was really able to find on the cemetery. Going right down once again to the ghost and orb stories is that, as very well it's surprising, old county records again offer little explanation, and folklore often offers a very degree of possible explanations. Unfortunately, it is believed that this mishap, which is not surprising, may be the cause as to why this graveyard remains so restless, with tired ghosts that never appeared to quiet down. It is believed that Bethel Cemetery is haunted by Civil War soldiers. And of course, orbs and apparitions are regulars at this cemetery, as are strange sounds, bad odors, cold temperatures, and unexplained feelings of being watched by something not of this world. The cemetery, which even more strangely is that it's always cold, even during hot summer days. And once again, that was all I could find for that cemetery. Again, it's just crazy again of, in spite of the history of these places, there's just such little information on this location. So we haven't even gotten to a half hour yet, and already we're down to the third one. So again, real good thing I put a lot of these together. So hang on one second. Let's get to the next one. What do we got next? Okay, this one's you know what? Let me just scroll through just to see if there's any that will last at least for a little bit of the episode. Because, like I said, I put a lot of these together just to be on the safe side. But the one I'm seeing right now is, geez. Okay, I think okay. So the majority of these are going to be short, but I do have one that's definitely going to last for a while. So we'll get, so as we scroll through, we'll continue on with the next location I got here. So now on to presentation number 4. Okay. All right. Let me go through this fun procedure again. I know. Thanks, Rita. I know some of these again are real quick, but at least you guys find them interesting. So thanks either way. And you know what? I'll point out just right before I get to the next slideshow. You know, in spite of how short some of these slideshows are, it really does give a lot of these other locations more focus on them than other haunted and historical locations, because we always see only, like, when we think of haunted locations, it's sometimes it's based on what we see on some of the paranormal shows, which many of these places have been investigated over and over and over again. And there's just so many others out there that, and I've said this on other shows, in which is that there's a lot of other locations out there that the majority of us don't even know about. So that's the reason. I mean, this is the reason why I'm kind of focusing more on a lot of these lesser locations than what you see on a lot of the other on a lot of the paranormal shows. So even if they don't have that much info, at least I'm giving the information, I'm presenting these locations, giving the attention that some of these locations certainly deserve. So, but either way, I definitely appreciate that you guys find it interesting. So let me get right on to the next slideshow. I got presentation number 4 all ready to go. And this one is also another unusual location. This one is called Clear Creek Metro Park. Again, as usual, it looks just like a normal park, just like anyone else. I mean, any other, but again, it's definitely got a interesting history to this location. So, although this one is also a little bit more recent, and considering that it's 2023 in my rule book, and I usually go with this with the same way as like the National Register of Historic Locations does this. The youngest I'll go for such locations is at least 50 years old. And considering that now it's 2023, that pretty much adds for places that were either built or started in 1973. However, I do keep my exceptions. If there was, like, for example, a building or a certain event that occurred at a certain location, if it was like 50 to 100 plus years ago, and if there's like a modern day place that's kind of continuing, because we see this a lot we see this with a number of different locations in which you may have a brand new house or building that is built on top of whether an event or tragedy or an old foundation or property was once stood, and they have all this activity even in the new location. Those are among some of my exceptions for a little bit of the more modern places. But as far as I can tell you right now, this one, until we get to a number of the other slideshows, this is probably one of the youngest locations I got here, which is from about half a century ago. Because in 1973, the Beck family from Columbus, Ohio, who owned land in the Clear Creek Valley, gifted 1,159 acres of it to Columbus Metro Parks, with the stipulation that 75% of the land should be declared a state nature preserve. At the time, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers had plans to flood the entire valley and build a reservoir, and the Becks hoped a large nature preserve could prevent that. Emily Benua, I guess if I'm saying that correctly, who also owned land that would have been flooded, gifted another 662 acres to the state nature preserve in her will, under the condition that it will. Sorry, sister's dog's over. Under the condition that it forever be held as a nature preserve for scientific, educational, and aesthetic purposes. So the plan for the reservoir eventually was scrapped, and in 1995, Clear Creek Metro Park officially opened to the public. Metro Parks had acquired additional land for a total of 3,800 acres by then, almost all of it nature preserve. By 2019, the park system had made several more land acquisitions for a total of 5,470 acres. And again, part of it, understandably, is because, again, the age of this location. But there was, again, just not much I was able to find as far as the history goes. But just to give a little quick info on what it's like for today, the one thing, if anyone happens to go to Clear Creek Metro Park, is that there is a large rock formation that leads over Clear Creek Road. This formation is well known and has been photographed for years. And I actually do have, in fact, there have been countless photos, several dating back from the early 1900s, and showing these two photos as an example. This one, I believe, was shot back, I think it was back in the 1920s, or possibly late 1910s. And I got another one here. This one looks like it's a little bit earlier. And I got to say, aside from the trees, and also the plant life growing on it, it really hasn't changed very much. But the one thing I will say about it, though, is that it definitely seems, this is just my opinion on it, but it kind of does have somewhat of an intimidating look to it, considering that it's leaning right over by the side of the road. But for such a location like this, too, oh, and also, too, the large boulder has several names. It is known as Leaning Rock, Leaning Lena, and unsurprisingly, Witch's Rock. And we're going to go right down to why in fact, it's called Witch's Rock, along with the ghosts, and for the witch stories, along with also the ghost stories as well. But and you see a photo like this, especially seeing how it's leaning over by the side of the road, and just seeing how dark it is on the underside. It's kind of I would not be the least bit surprised that even if I didn't know anything about it, that it would probably have some type of haunting atmosphere to it. But Clear Creek Metro Park and the surrounding areas are full of urban legends, and Witch's Rock doesn't disappoint. It is said apparently to be a hangout for witches. Legend has it that witches gather in an area close by to perform their rituals. Again, not surprisingly, it is believed that they are most active on Halloween. The witches are said to place sticks at the bottom of the rock, which, again, I was really kind of surprised. I never even found any photographs of the supposed sticks that were placed underneath the rock. But apparently, if one takes one of the sticks, something horrible will happen to them, which sounds more or less to me like that of a curse. But in addition to the rock, the entire area is also said to be haunted, though strangely, no specific reports have been received. But and that's, again, for a location that really doesn't get a lot of notoriety and, doesn't really get to be investigated very often. I'm sure that's among one of the reasons why they can't really figure out exactly what's haunting it, but probably just being at such a location like that, excuse me, you definitely would get the feeling that it's haunted. So that, sorry, that was my fault. I accidentally pressed little technical difficulty there. I accidentally pressed the escape button, and somehow it caused me to leave the studio for a second. So that was my fault. Got to be a little bit more careful when I press the escape button. Okay, so let's see here. All right, so on to the next one, to presentation number 5. Again, another real short one. Wow, I cannot believe I just did that. We'll make this one good. Let's see here. All right, I just had to make a quick correction on the slideshow just before exiting out the one I just worked on. I just presented. All right, so we're all set. Okay. So, okay, you were born in 71. Interesting. Okay, so now on to slideshow number 5. Again, this one will literally only last for a minute, which is, again, surprising for such a location like this. So, next one I got here is what's known as the Doctor's Hospital. And I think this is a little bit more closer to the town of Athens itself, if I'm correct. And unfortunately, we're just going to have to go right down to the ghost stories, because there was just not really anything I could really find on the history of this location. In fact, I could not even find the build date of when this hospital was even built. But the only thing but to give some information in some way, shape, or form, it was originally known as Mount St. Mary's Hospital. Nuns who used to work there are said to haunt the place. The nuns used to march every night, making sure that all the patients' doors were closed before performing their ritual, which I never really figure out exactly what ritual they were performing. And this was a photo of when it was Mount St. Mary's Hospital. I believe this. It actually shows the date right there. This photo was taken back in 1955, and if I'm correct, I know the hospital is still there today. I think it might be still in working. It might still be might still be in operation. I know it did close down a couple of times, so I think it's closed, in fact, now, but I could be wrong because I was reading a news article about this place, but I wasn't entirely sure if this was just like earlier this year, if this was a few years back, and that's probably among one of the reasons why it has a different name now to it. But in addition, but anyways, going back to the hauntings of it, is that it is said that the nuns continue to march in death, usually right before a patient dies. One nun in particular haunts the hospital. Many patients and other nuns saw her completing her rounds after her death. When she died, roses filled her room as she loved roses and grew them in the hospital garden. Now, in the administration office, which used to be her room, one can occasionally smell the scent of roses. And again, that's kind of the end of that one. Again, there was just not much I could really find on this location. So I'll be honest, I do sometimes feel a little bit bad when I'm not really able to find very much on these locations. But again, there's only so much you can find when you're doing your research on a certain case, whether it's a location or event wise. And again, when you're looking at a lot of the locations or events that don't really get as much notoriety as others, you're not going to come across as much, again, history or even ghost stories for the matter, when you aim your focus on these locations. Thought the aliens finally came and got you. I wasn't sure if you I think someone else said, I don't know if it was you, Eric, but I know someone else had said something like that to me on a different show. Maybe it was Brad. I can't remember, but I know somebody had said that to me before. Okay, so on to slideshow number 6. Now, these next couple ones again are going to be really short. Again, I really hate saying that every single time, but it is true though. Because again, we're just going from one to another. So to slideshow number 6. Yeah, this is on a and this is also sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. This is on an unincorporated township area. Hey, what's up, Raymond? Oh wow, check it out. There's a Rose Opera House in Kentucky. You were there 3 weeks ago, Raymond. You should have been here at the beginning because I was presenting that was the first presentation that I was slideshow I put together because Brad Webb of Cracked Skull Paranormal, he's going this weekend. But again, it was really surprising for such a location like that there was just not that much to really fill in on the history of it, just what I could find online. So if I knew that you'd gone a couple weeks back, if you had any additional info, I would have been more than happy to add it to the slideshow, but no big deal. So to the next slideshow we got here. You'll rewatch. Oh, yeah, okay. I don't know why I thought you were saying you'll rewatch. I wasn't sure, like, wait, what? But I know what you mean now. Earlier in the show. All right, here we go. So the slideshow number 6. So onto this unincorporated community area. This one is what's known as Falls Township, which is again still under the Athens County area. And again, not very much. I mean, like I said, it is an unincorporated township area. So with the exception of a few houses and stuff, there's really not much to really view here, as you could clearly see. Although it's pretty cool though that they still kept the either it's brick or cobblestone road, which I think even the road itself was kind of considered a designated landmark. But this is once again all I could really find on this place. But from what I did find was that Falls Township takes its name from a waterfall in the Hocking River, where a mill had been built in 1814 prior to the township's formation. And that was all I could find. I'm not even joking. And getting right down to the ghost story is that at midnight, the screams of a man who was killed in a drilling accident can be heard on the night he died. Never really figured out exactly which night it is, but again, that's all I was able to find. That's all I was able to find on this place. So right to the now on to slideshow number 7. Okay, let me get this set up. Yeah, this one too, it just goes right down to the ghost stories. Again, a lot of these cemeteries that I sometimes will, I mean, a lot of these places, particularly cemeteries that I'll cover, usually you could find some info on like the website findagrave.com, which I mentioned last week. And, even though some of these cemeteries in particular are featured on findagrave.com, they just, again, what they have sometimes as far as history goes is just not much of it. I'm also starting to speculate. I think one of the other reasons why there's limited information is I think possibly some of the records may be lost, or they might be hidden, or they've never been released publicly, or of course sometimes no one always, I guess you can kind of say just no one can really just does not have all the files for it, or but most likely, in my opinion, the records have probably been lost. Ned actually just made a good point. Some places are like that. You just cannot find information. You're absolutely right. So, slideshow number 7. Get this one up. This is another shorty. Oh, whoops! That's not what I was trying to get to. I was trying to get to the actual slideshow itself, not the document. Let's try that again. Okay. So this next one, which is focusing, I believe, on another cemetery. Yes, it is too. What's known as Haydenville Cemetery. Yeah, going right. See, I forgot to put the fade in once again on this, but the ghost and orb stories, if you will, is that this cemetery is said to be the site of strange phenomenon. Balls of light in a mysterious haze have been seen by witnesses. Whispers can occasionally be heard near the rear of the cemetery. And once again, that goes right down to the end of it. So let me make that correction very quickly. This will, again, like the other one, this will only just take a quick second. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes when I put these slideshows together, the fade in on many occasions sometimes will either be forgotten, or I work on these because sometimes some of these are relatively quickly. I assume that I already put the effects in, but sometimes those are missed. So I just corrected it, and we'll get down to slideshow number 8, and this one is a little bit longer. This has more pictures to it as well. Again, limited info, but it's got more pictures, especially paranormal wise. So let me get to the sharing once again. And for slideshow number 8, it actually even the location itself has a similar title to it because it's in the same area. So we focused on Haydenville Cemetery. Now we're going to focus on what's known as the Haydenville Tunnel. Even just by the looks of it, definitely has a very dark feel to it, even just by being on the outside of it. But again, the only thing I was able to find as far as research goes is that the Haydenville Tunnel was built in the 1850s to transport clay mined a few miles away to be easily transported to the log brick plants in Haydenville, Ohio, which was the sole reason the town existed. The tunnel, however, was abandoned pretty much 100 years later in 1957 and has not been used since. So again, tunnels really don't have very much info unless it played, like, even though this one kind of played a very important role in this case for Haydenville, tunnels usually you just don't really find, again, a lot of history on with the exception of, again, whether it played an important role. And the only other thing that I could really find, especially on tunnels and bridges, is the time it was built and it opened, and at the time it was closed. So again, not very much on the history, but I got a little bit more on the ghost stories associated with this place. And I have to admit, I mean, even looking at photos like this, definitely a very creepy looking place. In fact, even just by the looks of it, it looks almost cave-like. And what's even more fascinating on the photos here is that the what do you call those? Even the remains of the rails. There's even evidence of the rails that once stood here in that once were in the tunnel still existed. Although these photos were taken about almost 20 years ago. I know it was sometime in the early 2000s. I think it was either between this was either between 2002 and 2005. And there's something I got to bring up very quickly right before I end this, because it's definitely worth noting this, because I did see on the Ohio Exploration Society website. So let's get to the ghost stories first, and then I'll explain what I need to bring up. But it's not surprising that many believe Haydenville Tunnel is reportedly haunted by the ghosts of the workers who were supposedly killed there during its construction. It may also be haunted by the spirit of a girl in her late teens to early 20s. Some who braved entering the tunnel say it's very cold, and they have seen what they described as illuminating clouds. Unfortunately, okay, so again, not very much. I got a number of pictures of supposedly some of the phenomena that did occur that were taken, I think, involving the same investigation, as well as a few. I think it may have actually been a few different investigations at this tunnel. But they did manage to capture some really bizarre things. Unfortunately, anybody that's interested in wanting to go to Haydenville Tunnel, unfortunately, you can no longer do that. Let's just say since 2005, because the Ohio Exploration Society said that unfortunately it is now blocked off, not necessarily blocked off, but more fenced off, because of the age of the tunnel. Portions of this tunnel have collapsed. And the Forest Preserve, if I'm correct, if they're the owners of it, they are definitely concerned that another collapse could occur. May have already happened. I'm not entirely sure, considering that no one's been inside lately. But unless they figure out some way to clean up the portions of the tunnel that have collapsed and to prevent any more like collapses or cave-ins. Unfortunately, you can no longer go to this tunnel. And typical, like really for any paranormal show, I would definitely, not even if you try sneaking in, I would definitely advise against doing that, because again, doing something like that not only is illegal, but it can also very much cost you your life. Another collapse can certainly cause death or serious injury, especially if you're going by yourself. So, as any paranormal show would tell you, please, as always, the most important rule more than anything else is safety. And most importantly, even if this tunnel was declared safe, always make sure you get permission before you enter these locations. Please don't trespass, because for something like this, especially involving a tunnel like this collapsing and caving in, you will be sorry. I'm not trying to make a joke about it, but I think it's always I think it's always important to really bring that up. Again, I'm sure I'm not the first one here, not only on this show, not really on this network. I'm probably not the first to say that on this network about that, but we would definitely strongly advise against you trespassing or trying to sneak in, because again, it could either get you into serious trouble or could seriously cost you your life. So don't trespass anyone. Always make sure you get permission before you go to especially abandoned locations like this. And most importantly, even if you do manage to get permission, always make sure too you have somebody with you. So if something like that does occur, that somebody can go for help. Go out for help. I would always, as I always would say, always make sure you bring more than one person with, so that way, if something like this was to occur to you, which is Yes, it's relatively rare and relatively unlikely, but if it does occur, it's always best you have someone with you who can stay with you until whoever else is with you comes back with help. So, but anyways, I just wanted to bring that up very quickly. So again, please don't trespass and always make sure you ask for permission and make sure that such a location like this is safe before you investigate abandoned locations such as this. But before parts of the tunnel were collapsing, getting right to it, I did manage to find some very interesting photos of of some of the like I said of some of the phenomena that occurred in the tunnel. Again, this was probably well over 15, 20 years ago, and yes, you can see right now it's the tunnels even then wasn't in really good shape, but it definitely was in far better shape when these photos were taken. And you can clearly see, and I'll show you the other photo. I'm just going by one by one. You can clearly see what looks like now. At first, it looked like it was nothing more than just maybe part of the darkened area because it's further down in the tunnel. But you can kind of see somewhat of a shadow figure kind of sticking out. You can, if only there was some way I could just draw a line. But right here, as you can see like what I believe is probably the torso. I think this might be the legs right here. This looks like an arm sticking out, and I believe what's probably the head, almost like it's leaning down in some way. And this is a Brighton photo of it, which is a little bit. It doesn't really show as much as the original photo does, but again, it could maybe it's just part of the darkness. I'm not entirely sure, but based on what the investigators who captured these photos said that there was some type of shadow figure. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, yes, right here. This is what I was looking for. So they were able to draw this. Of course, that that call is going to have to wait. Um, okay, so as you can clearly see, so I was actually right on this. I may have went a little bit higher up than usual, but based on its appearance, it looks like a relatively small shadow figure standing there. It looks to me like a simple shadow person. But one thing I just got to bring up about, especially not only the enhanced, but where they shape it for you is based on the figures on the figure on the torso of it. It does almost appear like, and this is what it's up to what you guys think. It almost looks like it's wearing like a heavy coat of some sort because it looks a little bit kind of outwards towards the torso. It looks like it's wearing like almost like mining gear, maybe. It looks like it's wearing like again some kind of coat, maybe mining boots. That's a relatively small figure though. So very, very, very interesting photo. Again, it's just too bad that the tunnel's in such terrible condition and with the risks of collapsing again. Um, in my opinion, this would have been a place that I would say it definitely needs to be investigated. But again, due to safety reasons, it can't anymore. But that's pretty fascinating. A few other photos that occurred, they're not. This I believe was taken the same night, and they're not really sure exactly what this is in particular, but obviously looks like some kind of mist-like phenomenon going on in the middle of the tunnel. If not, and once again, you can see the remnants of the track that once ran in. And I'm not able to see the comments right now, so I'm probably going to be answering this question if anyone's asked this already. I never really found out exactly how far this tunnel goes to. I mean, it obviously has the appearance of like an abandoned mine shaft, but I tried looking to figure out, how far does this tunnel go? Because you can clearly see it does go pretty deep, but unfortunately, I just couldn't find exactly how far it went. But that's the other cool thing too. I mean, this is probably the old. Had it not collapsed and not had these safety reasons, this would probably be, again, in my opinion, the ultimate abandoned mine shaft that haunted the ultimate abandoned haunted mine shaft to be investigated. Oh man! And then next one here, we got another photo here of a lot of the mist-like phenomena, and you can see again, and adding to the showing how deep. I mean, how deep this tunnel goes. You can even see the different types of infrastructure, well, different types of infrastructure that was added to the tunnel, because like some of it you could see is part of it's stone. Looks like here this is wood, I think. Well, I don't know if I call this wood, but almost like some type of cement, and they're using like different types of blocks or cinder blocks in this area. Of course, understandably, you can see a lot of it's rusted due to its age and time, so much time going by. Of course, it's exposure to the elements, and looks like the top of the tunnel looks almost like it's made out of wood. So, definitely a lot of what's the word I'm thinking of? A lot of work was definitely put into its construction. And I think this is the last slide that has some of the unusual phenomena. Here's more of the unusual mist-like phenomena. Again, it's the investigators. It should be worth noticing because, again, I still want to partially remain skeptical on these photos involving mist. The investigators did say that when they went to this tunnel and investigated, I think they did say either it was cold out that night or it may have just been cold in the tunnel. So they're not real. Even these investigators really said they weren't really, clear to say that this was true mist-like phenomenon that was appearing in their photos, because understandably, if it was cold outside or if it was cold in the tunnel, it may have also most likely just been their breaths. They already did say, however, that nobody was smoking when these photographs were taken. So these are kind of, as I would put it, kind of like 50-50 in a way. I guess, you guys can think what you like, but they're definitely interesting photos. And this one in particular right here, you could clearly see an example of one of the collapses that have occurred. And sometimes it's just real sad to see such locations like this go, especially if they're not being well taken care of. I mean, this tunnel has been abandoned for decades. So if you leave a place like this, uncared for, not managed, or really owned by anybody, these places are definitely going to collapse. After several decades, especially when they're exposed to the elements. And wait, I thought that was the last slide. There's actually a few more. More of the mist-like, and again, shows more of the foundation of the rail tracks. That's what I find really cool is again the tracks that once existed. And again, this might be just some type of exposure to the camera, but even the investigators that took this photo weren't really fully sure. But if this is a genuine paranormal photo, it almost looks like part of it is somewhat like that of a white, almost like that of a white smoky figure that's kind of appearing on the side of the camera. And kind of looking at both photos, it looks like these two were taken in, even though they look almost identical, I think they were actually taken in two different areas, or probably in the same area, just a few feet apart within the tunnel. And that's pretty much it of this one, but at least this one went a little bit longer than usual. And going to the comments. Yeah. Okay. So, and that you get my warning. And yeah, you get my warning of such locations like this. Yeah, a tunnel definitely is weird. Safety and common sense, indeed. Okay, so Eric's talking about the figure from the first pictures. Okay, so been in a cave before and automatically gets cold when you get to a certain depth in a cave or so. You're absolutely right. So, and that's why I'm kind of a little bit more open-minded when it comes to those photos involving myths, because again, sometimes those photos can be debunked, but I don't want to fully debunk it just yet, because like I said, the investigators that captured those photos weren't really fully sure. So again, it's up to what you guys think. All right, so to the next one, next slideshow, slideshow number 10. Oh wow, I only got about 20 minutes left. Jeez, it's amazing. It's amazing how fast time goes with these shows. Let's just put it this way. Even though I got a lot more to present, since a lot of these are real short, I mean, it's a good thing I had these ready, but I don't think we'll be going through all of them today. And that's totally fine with me, because that way I can save them for next week. And of course, gives me more time to put more of them together, longer ones, that is. Okay, hang on one second. We'll make this another good one. This one's a little bit longer once again, but it's still a relatively short one. And all right, so the next one, I think might be the first of its location. The first location of its type that I'm presenting. So this next one here, presentation number 10, this one is what's known as Johnston Covered Bridge. And yeah, it has a little bit of an unusual kind of feature to it, kind of seeing kind of like how kind of curved it looks, or kind of it's leaned in position. But the only thing I was really able to find on this place is that on Johnston Bridge, built in 1887 by August Bornemann, if I'm saying that right, the Johnston Covered Bridge still rests on the original abutments. At 99 feet long, some say it is the county's longest covered bridge. This historic feature features a Howe truss and 2 full-length windows with canopies on both sides of the bridge, making the truss easily visible from the outside. The bridge was often referred to as the Terry Mill Covered Bridge, because Terry Mill was between the bridge and Hopewell Church. In the 1930s, and again, unfortunately, I wasn't able to find any historic photos of the bridge, but that kind of just described what I just mentioned. The 2 full-length windows and canopies were added to allow visibility of oncoming traffic. I don't know where the she was, but the bridge remained in service until about 1990, when bypassed. In 1991, the bridge was open only to pedestrian traffic. In 1996, the bridge was restored. And again, that's all I could really find as far as history information goes. But it's no surprising that this bridge is said to be haunted. Legend has it that the Johnston Covered Bridge is haunted. A weeping woman has haunted the bridge since long before it was retired from service. No one knows for sure who she is, but there are stories. And that's, again, bridges. I don't know what it is. It seems like bridges usually have the most urban legends when it comes to, urban legends. There's always these stories and legends that are always put together on these bridges. And it's just, I'm not sure exactly why bridges in particular, but it seems like it happens with a lot of them, especially these old historic and covered bridges. So there are 2 stories about whom this woman was and why she now haunts the covered bridge. The first legend states that the woman was hated by her own husband. He was having an affair and treated her terribly. She confronted him, and he told her that he was leaving her for the other woman. Upset of learning her husband's infidelity, she left their home and ended up at the bridge. One version says that she threw herself into the water. Another states that she hung herself in the bridge supports. And additionally, she allegedly used a piece of her clothing to form the noose. Now, the second legend states that the woman fell off the bridge into Clear Creek. She got off, and in this case, this was more of an accident, but she got off her buggy to guide her horses across the bridge during a fierce thunderstorm. She stumbled after the horses had made it through the bridge. As she stumbled, she lost her footing and fell into the rapidly flowing water of Clear Creek. Oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. So as a result, the woman's ghost stayed with the bridge and now haunts it as it sits in the park. People have reported that they see lights at the opposite end of the bridge. When the bridge was still in use, if one tried to cross, they would experience strange issues. Drivers reported electrical issues, mechanical malfunctions, and steering problems. Some also might see her form inside the bridge on some evenings, pacing it from end to end, or standing at one entrance looking out. Most often, she's seen to beckon to people. Exactly, again, that's it. But for what specific purpose, I'm not entirely sure. But definitely a very interesting take on the covered bridges. Let me just go back quickly and just make that correction, because that wasn't supposed to happen when I went right to the slideshow. Hang on once. Bear with me for just a moment. I'm also gonna take out that sheet because I don't know where that came from. Okay. Okay, so now to presentation number 11. Still got another 15 minutes to go. All right. So presentation number 11 already. This one here we're focusing on is what's known as Cacklemacker Park, which from what I actually had that was one in particular I had to make sure I'm saying that correctly, because I think that's actually more of a German term, which I think we're gonna see in the history info on it. Give me 1 second here because I have not taken one drink of water during this entire show. All right. So the only info I could find on this place was that Cacklemacker Park is a picnic style park located in downtown Logan, Ohio, which is again close to the Athens area. I'm not sure if it's in the Athens County area, but again, I did throw it in because again of how, due to the fact that it was not far away from Athens. But the park was donated to the city of Logan by Count Nils Louis Christian Cacklemacker to be used solely as a public park in 1917. Excuse me. The park consists of 3 large shelter houses that may be used free by the public for parties or gatherings. The availability of these shelter houses are on a first come first served basis. And this was, again, interestingly enough, this was the only there. This is a photo of Nils Cacklemacker. This was right. I think this was in fact. I think this was I think this was right around the time that he passed away, because I do know that he did pass away in 1917, if I'm correct on it. But okay, so I got it wrong. I thought it was German. Actually, it's Norwegian. Nils Cacklemacker was from Norway he was from Norway before he moved to the United States. So name itself is Norwegian, not German. And it's actually really surprising. I don't know if you can really see. Again, I know the text is real small, but the craziest thing is about this picture of him. This was Nils Cacklemacker at a very young age. When this photo was taken, he was just 21 years old. And he doesn't even look like that with the beard and the mustache. But again, that was, of course, the typical type of attire that men wore back in the day, even from not only just here in the United States, but around the world, including Norway. But he was the one that put this whole part together. And it's always fascinating when it's usually someone who comes from a country like Norway or somewhere from Europe that puts these areas together. And but I cannot really find too much about his death. But going right down to the ghost stories is that shadowy figures have been seen roaming the park at night. And that's basically it. Again, shows how limited I could find on these places. But that's all they have to say about it, is that it is said to be haunted, and all that's from what I read was that, yeah, it has all these shadow people that haunt this place. So, let me get right to the next one already. All right, give me a second here. So on to slideshow number 12. And this is, in fact, the next slideshow that I'll be presenting, it's actually right in the same area of the park, or at least not too far from it. So let me, okay. Okay, so we got about 10 minutes left, so that will be enough for at least two more or three, depending on how short these next ones are going to be. Where is... here it is. All right. Okay, so on to slideshow number 12. I'm going to be honest, just before I get started with the next one, this is probably, I know I said this for the last episode, this is probably the biggest amount of slideshows that I've presented so far on this show. I've never have done this many before. But again, I'm so glad I made a whole bunch of these just to fill up the entirety of the show. So the next location on presentation number 12 is what's known as, again, pretty much in the same area, called the Matthias Cabin. And again, not really much I could really find on it, but I'll present it to you guys anyway. And that is, the cabin possibly was built by John Arney, a captain during the Civil War. It represents the type of log dwelling early settlers built prior to the availability of bricks and other building materials. Not typical, however, were the pine logs that were used for pines, were much less common than they are now. The building foundations and rock terracing were built from sandstone quarried nearby. A potable spring emerges from the sandstone outcroppings north of the cabin. The Matthias family moved in the cabin in 1922 and lived there for many years. Never really said exactly how long they actually lived there, other than it said many years, but it is now part of Clear Creek Metro Park. Thanks to restorative efforts from Columbus Metro Parks, it is available for the public to admire. But again, not surprisingly, it's haunted. Like many old homes, it is believed to be haunted. During the day, the cabin looks innocent, but at night, the ghosts show themselves. Stories have it that one can see lights in the windows and faces peering out. There has also been a man believing to be John Arney spotted walking along the porch. But apparently he disappears as he reaches the steps. Voices and laughter have also been heard. And again, there we go. Again, another real shorty one for you. I got to actually fix something real quickly on this one too. See, again, this is why I always make sure that they're always in good condition. Even after I'm done presenting it, it's always best to fix it up. Okay. And okay, we are good on that one. All right, so to slideshow number, I already forgot. Did I say 13 or 12 or 13? Excuse me. All right, so I know I'm kind of also doing this in alphabetical order, but I'm just going to throw this one in because, again, this is another real short one. This one's not really a haunted location, but it does have some history to it. So I can't believe I already lost track. This is either slideshow number 13 or 14. When you're doing this many, you eventually lose count. Before this, I usually only ever did one or two. All right, well, whatever the case is, we'll get right to it. Where? Oh, here it is. Okay. All right. So the next one I got here, and this is right around this is right around the same area. Uh, this one's known. This one's also a cabin of itself, known as the Thomas Cabin. But again, not really very much ghost stories associated with this one, at least as far as I know from what I researched. But like I said, because of its historical purpose, I decided to throw it in. You have to remember, and I know I haven't really done this lately. Not all the locations that I throw it, that I add onto these presentations are always going to be haunted. Some of them are just full of history to it. So, and you'll eventually see over the next couple weeks that there's going to be more locations like this because I definitely don't want to just focus on the haunted locations. Even just the ones with history are always fascinating. So, to use this one as an example, the Thomas Cabin was owned by Edward S. Thomas. He purchased the 80-acre tract in 1921. He called it Neotoma Valley. Ed was a writer for the Columbus Dispatch. The first article was titled Our Birds. It was published on March 5th, 1922. He continued writing for the Columbus Dispatch for 59 years. Many of his articles were about the wildlife, plants, and history of the Clear Creek Valley. And again, that's all I can really find on it. That's it. So, man, I don't even think I spent a full minute on that one. All right, so we only got 4 minutes left. So therefore, I think we have time for one more slideshow to go through before we end it all. So we'll make this one good. What can I? Okay, yeah. See, a lot of these, like I said, a lot of these other ones here are more historical than haunted. So we'll do this. We'll do this one. This will be enough time because again, with how much I have left, this will probably fill in the last couple minutes. All right. This has got to be at least slideshow number 15. Wow. I think I've reached a record here. So this one here is what's known as the Roundhouse Mansion, which definitely has a very unusual feature to it, but it has some history of its own. Again, not really another, in spite of the appearance, not really another haunted location, but again, more one with historical purpose. But from what I was able to find was that the Roundhouse Mansion is located again in Haydenville, Ohio, a small town which billed itself as the last company town in Ohio. Peter Hayden, a businessman from Columbus, purchased the settlement, then known as Hocking Furnace in 1853, and renamed it Haydenville. And I almost forgot. And this is a picture of him. So Hayden was known a friendly man and a great boss who treated his workers well. And I was able to find, at least I was actually kind of amazed. I was able to find a few historic photos of the Roundhouse Mansion, but the Roundhouse Mansion itself was built in 1911 and was registered as a national landmark in 1973. The unique structure is constructed of silo tiles produced by the Haydenville Mining and Manufacturing Company that was directly across the road. The company produced ceramic bricks, pipes, and tiles from the area's nearby clay deposits and demonstrated its products by using them in the company-owned town. The Roundhouse Mansion became the private residence of 3 generations of the Smith family. The third Smith generation passed away a few years back. The new owners had plans to convert the roundhouse into a hostel. As far as I know, or anyone else does, some work was completed, but it never really got off the ground. And so the Roundhouse Mansion is on the market for $80,000. And again, that's all I was able to really find on this on the Roundhouse. So this was definitely good timing, and we ended it just in time. Wow, that's got to be well over 15 presentations I presented today. So definitely a new record for me. So that's quite amazing with the amount of work that I've definitely I've put into these slideshows. Um, so to make this real quick, because I know again on one of the other networks, I know a show is starting right after me. So for next week, I'm not sure. Again, we still have a lot more to go through because, like I said, I have many other slideshows that I wasn't even able to present for today. Um, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to focus on Athens, in this case, part 6 of Athens, Ohio next week, because possibly we still haven't fully confirmed this yet, but we did take the time off for it just be on the safe side. But even though it's not going to be focusing on Athens, Ohio, it actually, however, it will still focus in the state of Ohio itself. Not necessarily because we have an investigation coming up, but we do have a certain event that's going to be held at a very notorious haunted location in Ohio. And this is a place I've been to before. And so is my friend, actually, that investigator friend of mine is Tom McNicholas. We Again, I can't say for sure, but we will possibly. Again, it all depends on really kind of car situation as well as our schedule. But we will possibly be going to the Ohio State Reformatory next weekend for Parapsychon. Um, we won't be investigating it because first off, there is an investigation that is going to be taking place, but it's one of those celebrity investigations, and those ones are usually really expensive. I usually would, unless it's somewhat of ever of a reasonable price, I'd highly recommend go there on a personal investigation, especially with a group, because prices for investigations at OSR are usually very expensive. So therefore, we'll be focusing on Ohio State Reformatory, or Mansfield, as it's better known as. And if we also have time, it also depends on how much I could find on this place. And I know for a fact that OSR has a lot more history to it. So it'll definitely be a longer slideshow. But depending on how long it is, I might also throw a second location in, not from Athens, but in fact, just a few minutes away from where Mansfield Reformatory is located. And this is another place that we actually investigated just about 2 years ago, known as the Gill House, which surprisingly, I'll say this, actually has a little trace of its history going back to Chicago, involving its infrastructure and it was being built. So that's what we're going to try to do next week. We're either going to we're going to try to. I can't say for sure, and I can't say for next week, but we will just be on the safe side. We will be focusing on Mansfield Reformatory, and if we got some time left, we'll try to also focus on the Gill House, which is both in the Mansfield area of northeastern Ohio. So as always, thank you guys so much as always for tuning in. I always appreciate again the work I put in for this. It took a long time for me to put this all in. The work I've really and my efforts I put into this was totally worth putting together. And as always, I can't thank you guys enough. So until then, I know, of course, we're not sure if we're going to be doing To the Grave and Back tomorrow. I know Lois said she's not going to be able to do it, but possibly me and Rosie might take over like we did 2 weeks ago. Well, now almost 2 weeks ago, involving when we did Jonestown. And then, of course, Supernatural Talk. I know we got the Rev coming on along with, I keep forgetting the other person's name, and I feel I need to start writing this stuff down. So we got that for Supernatural Talk, and then I know we're back on the Frighteners on Friday, in which we'll be talking about portals. But until then, I know, of course, I'll see some of you. Again, I can't say for sure if it's To the Grave and Back, but if we do the show tomorrow, I'll probably see some of you guys tomorrow, if not tomorrow night, for Supernatural Talk. But unless you guys want to wait for next episode of Nick Files, I guess I will see some of you guys next week. So thank you guys all very much. You guys have a great evening. I'll see some of you guys tomorrow. But like I said, if you guys are wanting to wait to the next one, I will see some of you guys next week. Take care. Take care, everyone. Have a good one.